Yet, for all its combat glory, for all its critical acclaim, the F-15 still manages to keep one special secret.
A fighter so old, foreign analysts called her a museum piece, even as Chinese state media built entire propaganda arcs around her age as the centerpiece of American decline. A program so quietly funded by foreign allies that by the time the Pentagon noticed, billions in Saudi and Qatari money had already paid to redesign her wings, replace her flight controls, and rebuild her around a digital backbone she was never meant to have. A comeback so total that within 4 years of her first delivery to an Air National Guard unit, she was carrying 12 radar-guided missiles, generating an electronic warfare cloak no fighter on Earth can match, and forcing the Air Force to pour an additional $3.1 billion into a program it had spent 2 decades trying to cancel. Welcome back to the channel. What you are about to hear comes from official Boeing releases, Air Force fact sheets, GAO program reviews, on-record statements from named generals and test pilots, and the actual words of Chinese and Russian state media when they thought America's 4th-generation fleet was a corpse. By the end, you will know what they called her, who saved her, what she carries, what she sees, and why the men and women flying her in Portland, Oregon believe she is a different aircraft entirely from the legend whose silhouette she still wears. This is the story of the F-15EX Eagle II, and this is the comeback they did not see coming. Chapter 1. The Mockery on the Record. In the Chinese state press through the late 2010s, the F-15C became rhetorical shorthand for American decline. The Global Times, CCTV, Xinhua, the PLA Daily. The variations were always the same. Museum piece, obsolete, a relic unsuited for modern AESA-equipped Chinese fighters. Former PLA instructor Song Zhongping said it directly. The American Eagles were falling behind in electromagnetic spectrum dominance, while the AESA radars on China's J-16 strike fighters were leaving them in the rearview mirror. Russian state media pushed the same line. Even American think tanks, the Mitchell Institute, CSBA, Heritage, agreed. Upgrade a non-stealth aircraft for a peer fight, and you get too little, too late. Former Air Force Secretary Heather Wilson warned of in-flight structural breakups. The Eagle was widely viewed as a closed chapter. Chapter 2. The Eagle's Birthright. On July 27, 1972, the original F-15A lifted off the runway for the first time. By 1976, she was in service. What followed is the most lopsided air-to-air record in modern aviation. 104 kills, 0 losses in air-to-air combat, more than half scored by the Israeli Air Force. Moshe Melnick scored the types first in 1979, and the IAF used the Eagle to dismantle Syrian MiGs over the Bekaa Valley in 1982. The United States Air Force accounts for 36 to 39 victories of its own, primarily during the 1991 Gulf War. The kills were not won against peers, but the platform itself. High thrust to weight, low wing loading, the air superiority purist philosophy engineers summarized in 5 words. Not a pound for air to ground. That was what made the kills possible. In 1984, McDonnell Douglas won the dual-role fighter competition. The F-15E Strike Eagle entered service in 1989 at Mountain Home and RAF Lakenheath. That was the inheritance the Mockery was calling obsolete. Chapter 3. The Day She Broke. On November 2, 2007, an Eagle with tail number 80-0034, 27 years old, assigned to the Missouri Air National Guard's 131st Fighter Wing, went up for routine training near St. Louis. She did not come down in one piece. The aircraft snapped in half directly behind the cockpit. Major Stephen W. Stillwell ejected and survived. The investigation found a forward fuselage longeron, a primary load-bearing structural member, had developed fatigue cracking. Decades of high G turns had grown the cracks silently. Then they let go. The Air Force grounded non-mission critical F-15s. By 2018, the math was impossible. Re-winging the legacy fleet to a 2045 service life was cost prohibitive. The Eagle was structurally dying. Chapter 4. The Foreign Money That Saved Her. While the Air Force focused on the F-22 and the troubled F-35, foreign allies quietly funded the Eagle's digital resurrection. Saudi Arabia bought the F-15SA. Qatar bought the F-15QA. The Qatari requirement was the critical one. It demanded a full redesign of the internal wing structure and a complete digital fly-by-wire flight control system, replacing the legacy hydromechanical linkages with a quadruple redundant digital computer. That single change rewrote the airframe's relationship with physics. Carefree handling. A pilot can pull 12 Gs in an emergency, cross the controls aggressively, or fly with severely asymmetric loads without departing controlled flight. The redesign also activated Wing Stations 1 and 9, outermost hardpoints historically dormant because mounting heavy weapons caused flutter. Those hardpoints could now carry missiles. By the time Boeing pitched a domestic version, billions in foreign military sales had already paid for the research, the structural testing, and the production tooling. The Pentagon was being offered a fully modernized zero-hour Eagle at a fraction of the expected R&D cost. Chapter 5. The Digital Rebirth. In 2018, the Office of the Secretary of Defense imposed the F-15EX procurement on an Air Force that had insisted for 2 decades it would never buy another non-fifth-generation fighter. The first contract came in July 2020. $1.2 billion for the first lot of 8 aircraft, an IDIQ ceiling of nearly $23 billion for the enterprise. The Eagle II shares roughly 95% parts commonality with the Qatari F-15QA, meaning pilots and maintainers could transition from the legacy F-15C in weeks rather than years. In 2022, Boeing's defense COO Steve Parker pledged under $80 million per aircraft. By the June 2025 GAO review, unit cost was $125.4 million. The fleet target swung from 144 down to 98 in fiscal year 2025. Then, driven by Pacific theater needs, Congress and the Department of War proposed a $3.1 billion expansion in fiscal year 2026 and fiscal year 2027, adding roughly 24 aircraft and pushing the program back up to approximately 122 units. She was supposed to be a stopgap. She has become a fleet. Chapter 6. The Magazine. Out of the box, the F-15EX is cleared to carry 12 AIM-120 AMRAAMs, 50% more than a legacy F-15C, 3 times the 4 and F-35A carries internally, more than twice the 6-missile internal load of an F-22 Raptor. Boeing has marketed an even larger configuration, 22 missiles via the Advanced Missile and Bomb Ejection Rack, the AMBER system. That loadout has not been operationally validated. The Air Force operates today on the proven 12-missile load, which still vastly outguns every other tactical fighter in the United States inventory. On a heavily reinforced centerline pylon, she is rated for outsized weapons up to 22 feet long and 7,000 pounds. That makes her the primary tactical platform slated to carry the AIM-120 air-launched rapid response weapon, a boost glide system that propels a hypersonic glide vehicle past Mach 20. She can carry massive clusters of JDAMs, dozens of GBU-53 Stormbreaker small-diameter bombs, and stealthy AGM-158 JASSM cruise missiles. In time, she will carry hit-to-kill weapons like Raytheon's Peregrine, half the size of an AMRAAM, theoretically doubling her magazine again. Stealth fighters carry weapons internally to stay invisible. The Eagle II carries weapons externally because she has stopped trying to hide. Chapter 7. The Sword and the Shield. The eyes belong to Raytheon. The APG-82V1 active electronically scanned array radar marries the fast receiver of the FA-18's APG-79 to the massive antenna of the F-15C's APG-63V3, powered by gallium nitride microelectronics. Raw transmitting power to burn through jamming, angular resolution to spot small low-flying cruise missiles at extreme standoff. She can also fly with the Legion pod and her IRST-21 infrared sensor, detecting an enemy stealth fighter without radiating a single watt. Her shield is EPAWSS, the Eagle Passive Active Warning Survivability System, designation ALQ-250, built by BAE Systems. It replaces every Cold War-era radar warning receiver with a fully integrated all-digital system providing 360-degree threat geolocation and multispectral RF countermeasures. During Northern Edge 2023 in Alaska, EPAWSS demonstrated cognitive electronic warfare. Its AI algorithms recognized novel threat waveforms in real time and autonomously generated jamming techniques without human intervention. In January 2025, the Air Force awarded BAE a $616 million contract for EPAWSS full-rate production. The Eagle II is not stealthy. She does not need to be. She is wrapped in a digital cloak that rewrites itself faster than the threats trying to find her. Chapter 8. The 142nd Wing. On June 5, 2024, Major Calvin Knife Connor of the Oregon Air National Guard's 142nd Wing flew aircraft EX-008 onto the runway at Portland Air National Guard Base. The first operational delivery of the F-15EX to any Air Force unit, anywhere. The Air Force gave the Eagle II to Homeland Defense Guard units before active-duty squadrons because the Guard scrambles against long-range bomber probes. That kept fifth-generation assets free for forward-deployed Pacific theaters. Major Connor described it plainly. Quote, "I have a new radar, a new digital backbone. I have got new engines. I have got a new electronic warfare suite. I have got more pylons. I can take off and land at heavier weights. The F-15EX is a game-changer." End quote. Colonel David Pound Christensen, the 142nd's commander, put it this way. Quote, "When the F-15EX first landed, we thought it looked very much like the C model parked next to it. But when you start digging into the avionics and all the different hardware, it's really a new jet." End quote. Chapter 9. The Missile Truck Doctrine. The F-15EX is not designed to fly alone in a peer fight. She flies with the F-22 and F-35 forward, stealthed up, and remains dozens of miles behind them, magazine deep. The forward stealth fighters acquire enemy aircraft. They pass targeting telemetry rearward through Link 16. The Eagle II, hearing the cue without ever activating her own radar, launches a barrage of long-range AMRAAMs. The kill chain closes from a distance no single platform could have generated alone. The stealth fighters kick in the door. The Eagle drives the missile truck through it. The comeback they did not see coming. Critics still argue she costs more than a stealth F-35A and will not survive day one airspace in a contested peer war. Those critiques are made in good faith. They are also incomplete. She does not try to be invisible. She tries to be unkillable. She carries more missiles than any tactical fighter in the United States inventory. She sees with a radar that burns through jamming. She is shielded by a cognitive EW suite that learns. And she carries 70 years of bloodline. The Bekaa Valley, the Gulf, Mountain Home, Lakenheath, Kadena, Portland, without a single loss in air-to-air combat. They called her a museum piece. They called her obsolete. They called her a closed chapter. She is today the highest magazine air-to-air fighter the United States has ever fielded. Flown from an Oregon Guard hangar by men and women whose grandfathers served in the original Eagle. The Eagle has not merely returned, she has evolved to survive.